All right, look how fatty, big, hairy butt. Hey, big spoiled hairy dog. Man, it's amazing. It'd be great to come back, a cat or a dog. You know what I mean? Your food is always there, right? Your food's always there, and your free head massage, back scratch is always there. You don't even have to ask. Ever. Not verbally, anyway. Crazy. What's going on in the world today? What's going on in the world today besides absolute crazy insanity? I never talk about money or investments, but I've always taken care of my ass. That's about all I should... I don't even need to say that, but I've always taken care of myself. Actually, I've always taken care of myself for a long time. Long time. I don't know if anybody's into the crypto scene or not, but if you are, you know what's going on with XRP. And that's all I got to say. If you are, and you haven't been keeping an eye out, you might want to take a look at that really quick. Because there's some really insane things going on with that for the past week. It's absolute insanity. Am I in XRP? Yeah, I've been heavy in XRP, just so you know. There you go. Now, I'm not a fan of money. You know what I mean? I'm not a fan of money or bullshit appearances in looks. I'm not into it. Not into it. Look, check out my Rolex. No, wait, look at my watch. If you saw my truck, you'd laugh like my friends do. My truck is just an overgrown quad. I beat the shit out of it. I don't care. I'm a huge fan of freedom. Obviously. I'm a huge fan of freedom. I'm a huge fan of truth. I don't like bullshit. And obviously. What did I hear the other day? People that look rich are poor, and people that look poor are rich. That about nails it on the head, doesn't it? I spent many years side by side with some of the most money-rich people in the world. And one thing I learned at a young age, a little off topic, what the hell, I'll bust open with this. You know, like the monster my mom brought home, he's one of those guys who just wanted to be the kingpin. What a loser. God, what a loser, but he wanted to be the kingpin. You know what I mean? It was all about image, power. There's no cringe of a fucking, sorry about language. There's no cringe of a person. Back in the day, their favorite show was Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Probably one of the most biggest douchebag TV shows that ever hit the airwaves, but that was their favorite show. So you can see where that mindset was. So I was aware at a very early age of what that does to people, right? The craving of the money and power. I was taught at a very young age that that's a real nasty thing. Thank God. Thank God for that lesson. And then, handful of, shit pile of nightmares later, growing up, learning about personalities and what goes on in the so-called real world, what goes on in a grown-up world, and watching people and what they do for power, and being aware. It's kind of creepier and shit. And then being put in the position I was in the absolute natural, most beautiful place in the whole world, the Rocky Mountains on horseback. That's a good sounding elk bone, isn't it? Pups, take it easy. It's not going anywhere. And then, is a moment of my life, some of the best days of my life. I mean, you're living in absolute paradise, doing what you love, and food would just get delivered from a bush plane, so food came from the sky. You know what I mean? And you got your laundry done every once in a while, but it was pretty good. Then these characters would come, and we'd get a new hunter every 10 to 14 days. And at the time, this outfit I was at was the world's #1. 3-year waiting list just to come with us when I first got on there. And if you were the shit of the shit, you went there. Country music, stars, celebrities, sports stars, corporate monsters. And then you get dropped off with me, and all of a sudden you get slammed back into that seat of being nothing, no one special. No matter what. Believe it or not, they like that. But anyway, I treated him just like you would your little brother. I did not. At that stage of the game, I was already well versed in money and power and the bullshit that it represented. And I was absolutely focused on the good. The heaven on earth, that natural beauty, the memories, and everything that comes with that whole experience, right? And it's all I knew. It's all I saw. And to take these guys, roughly, if they were new and didn't know me, I'd take it easy on them at first, because usually I'm chucking shit at you like we've been buddies forever and insulting the crap out of you and just taking the shit out of you nonstop because it's funny and it's fun. So I couldn't unleash the true me right off the back, so it'd scare the shit out of them, right? But all these characters, they're always over paranoid of somebody wanting something from them. And after spending a lot of time with these people in their own homes, in their own worlds, because I get invites all over the planet, if I told you guys all my stories that I've experienced this lifetime, you probably wouldn't believe half of them. I got some crazy ass stories. But anyway, once they realize that I am exactly what you get, and I don't give a flying shit what you got or who you are, money and power-wise, then finally I get the real person to come out, and their guard drops, and then we start to become friends and focus on the great thing about this experience. And then I would be sitting on a mountain with the most insane view you could ever conjure up with your imagination, in a good way. And I'd be like, what's your number, man? Like, how much money do you need? Like, what do you mean? Well, I probably said this before in the past. I always said, and I said it to every one of them after I knew their guard was down, and I'd get the true answer. Okay, well, I don't know. I mean, if I had a couple young kids or whatever, a few young kids, and you put $10 million in my bank account, I wouldn't have any time to chase another dollar. That part's done. I'm going to make sure that these children's flip-flops are wore out on every single beach and trail in the world. I'm going to see it all. How much do you need? And you know what? Probably 8 out of 10 of them. 7.5 to 8 out of 10 of them. All have the same answer. What? It's never enough. Holy shit, is that a creepy genetic flaw? I couldn't believe it. Still, it's amazing. But it fits, though. If you look at what's going on globally, it fits, right? Because once you get that genetic flaw spread around in the places of power, how many generations does it take until every single position of power is taken up with someone with that genetic flaw, and then that in turn creates the nightmare that we're in today. Right? I came up with that one on my own. But I believe it to be true. Anyways, that being said, I'm just saying I learned lessons along at a young age, so. But unfortunately, you need the shit to be free. Right? You need that shit. Shit meaning wealth, money. You need it so that some douchebag can't be the one to decide if you may or may not have your child's birthday off from work that day. Whoa. Right? And just so you know, I haven't had a boss since I was probably 24 years old. I don't think I've had somebody being able to tell me what to do. I don't believe. 24 years old. Right? Anyway, so back onto the one time I'll say, hey, if you haven't got into the crypto scene and you don't know what it's about, if you can, you might want to look into it right now. And if you got a couple of dollars, you might want to throw it down on XRP. That's all I'm saying. Okay, move it along. Time to get some important voices heard. Besides my annoying babble. My annoying babble. What do we got? Who knows? I'm diving in. I'm going to go down a little further here. All right, let's go back up. So many emails. So many voices to be heard. This is titled Your April 8th Video, Sasquatch Had a Gun on It. All right, who even knows what year that is? I'm sure if you searched the title Sasquatch Had a Gun on It, then you're going to come up with the video he's talking about. Or her, don't even know. On your April 8th, 2019 Sasquatch Had a Gun on It, at 11:45 into the video, what's that over your left shoulder? Something's running left to right. Is it a bear? Pretty cool. You rock, bro. Keep it up. All right. And with a screenshot, I remember that day. Oh. Maybe I don't. Oh, no, I remember that day. I don't know where I was. That was a vehicle. It's actually a vehicle that snuck in behind me, and that was a freshly plowed out one-way road that went into the Sioux Valley. And there was a private property in there. I couldn't believe it getting developed. And that's how I got in there. And then apparently, too, on that note, the old owner of the new property got frickin' mauled by a cougar right there. Crazy, right? Oh, sorry, there's a photo. There's a photo. You don't need to go searching it because it's not a Sasquatch, all right? It was a Jeep that went behind me that day. Then the email carries on. I'm 46 years old and I live in New Mexico. We have some beautiful country around the state, tall mountains, timber, woods, and arid deserts. I used to hunt and camp and spend all my free time in the woods. I love going out by myself. As I've gotten older, I'm stuck with mortgage and bills, so I get to work more than get to go out. I was around 18 years old, still in high school, out in the San Mateo mountain range, Cibola National Forest, which is out in southwest central part of the state. Not hunting, just enjoying the outdoors. I had an old Ford pickup and was basically just out for a day ride. I'd stopped for a while just to look out with my scope at the terrain. It had adjustable power up to 60 times. I thought I was watching a bear, probably a mile or more away. It was very small in my scope. It appeared to be on all fours, digging at something in the ground. It was in a clearing, and as it got close to the tree line, it stood up and took about 3 to 4 steps and disappeared from sight. As soon as it stood up, it did not seem bear-like, but more human-like. It very well could have been a bear, but it was so far away I could not make out details other than it was a dark figure and was acting like a bear looking for food until it stood up. It scared the crap out of me. I didn't know what exactly it was. I never told anyone about it, but it was very out of the ordinary and have never seen anything like it since. But it's always been in the back of my mind. I apologize for the crappy telling of the story. That is something I don't do. I don't Facebook or Insta tweet or any of that shit. I hate social media and I don't participate. My wife does, but not me. She's the one who showed me your YouTube. I enjoy your content and storytelling. Thank you for taking the time to read this winded mess. Mark, it's not a winded mess. You did great, man. And there you go. You left me a map and it's basically dead straight center in the middle of New Mexico. Taos, New Mexico. You know, wildlife biologist from there. All right, Pops. Come here. Let's take this outside. Today, this phone is just a little too loud, all right? Now here, go get it. Go get it out there. Go get it. Go on. There you go. See ya. All right. Usually I can put up with shit, but I am more sensitive to background sound than most people. Probably due to all the time I spent in the woods. But I appreciate you sounding later, man. You know what you saw. You know what you saw. Welcome to the club. Steve, thanks for giving folks an outlet. I'm a bow hunter, bow only, and have been for decades. Competed in tournaments on both the state and national level. Enough about me. I own 4 horses, and for many years loved to chase elk in the Rocky Mountains on horseback. I was in the San Juan Mountains, Colorado, and made camp in a small valley near the San Juan River. That night in my tent, something woke me up across the river at around 2 a.m. Then it screamed again. Within 100 yards of my tent, I could literally feel the vibrations from the scream. I ran out with my pistol in hand, thinking my horses had scattered. They were all ears, up, intently looking into the blackness and the steep mountainside across the river. I heard nothing more. I've heard just about every critter in the mountains. This is like nothing I've ever heard before. The sheer volume of lung power it took to emit that scream is beyond my level of thinking. I could literally feel it. Said every single person that's heard it. I've been in wilderness areas all my life and have never heard that, and haven't heard it since. The next day, I'm glassing a drainage looking for elk, and I noticed what I at first thought was a lightning-struck tree trunk, until it stood up and disappeared into the spruce. I mounted my horse and got the hell off that mountain. Saw or heard nothing else the rest of the week, but needless to say, it spooked the living hell out of me. After researching and studying up on these things, whatever they are, I truly believe they can be dangerous, especially to a lone hunter. I think the thing was watching and studying me. And all of a sudden, lone hunters disappearing without a trace becomes more disturbing. At least to me. Love your videos. Keep it up, amigo. Texas bow hunter, a.k.a. Jack Johnson. That's a big buck, man. Check it out. Added in a picture of himself and a deer. That's a hammer whitetail. I don't think you're a small guy, and I'm looking at that deer by his eyeballs, size of the head, and muzzle. Excuse me, I'm guessing that's like a 250-pound plus whitetail. Right on. Welcome to the club. Yeah. The hunter going missing thing. You know what? It's kind of funny. Not funny, but one thing about all this kerfuffle and how people carry themselves around. We're on the menu. We're still on the menu, no matter what anybody thinks or feels. The amount of security we create around ourselves in communities, neighborhoods, apartments, condos, cul-de-sacs. I think it's a bit of a false sense of security that people have created in society today with modern humans. Because we are on the menu, not only from natural predators that we know of, but from human predators, big time and more, right? And then we get back to the child thing. 357,000 kids. That, when they go missing on a level like that, my gut says that's food. As creepy and dark and alarming and impossible as that sounds, that more like tells me they're food. Right? I mean, we are talking, if it's that many kids, let's just say they're getting sold. Okay. Well, that means it's around, with all the adults involved in that task, feeding, moving, using, purchasing, housing, we're talking millions of dark, demon-like culprits. Unless they're food. Right? Sorry to bring it up. It's got to be looked at. Unless they're food. What I'm saying is, human beings are on the menu out there. It's not just solo hunters, unfortunately. And whatever the word. Sometimes I say the wrong things, but I'd say for the amount of people that go missing and taken, hunters are probably some of the safest out there. You know what I mean? If you go by stats and numbers, hunting's not dangerous if you want to go get disappeared compared to other activities or groups of humans. Next one, UFO and sea monster. Not joking. Alright. I've never seen a Sasquatch, but I've seen a UFO, and my best friend has seen a sea monster. I have experienced the same types of ridicule as those who have seen unknown creatures in the woods, and thought maybe you would be interested to hear more examples of things that are unexplained in this world. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado. It was fall 2001, and I had just turned 19. I was on the east end of town, out in the plains, driving towards the mountains with a friend of mine. As I was driving, I saw something hovering low above the foothills and initially dismissed it, but quickly realized it was very out of place. At that same moment, my passenger saw it and began to get very nervous. I stopped the truck and pulled out a pair of binoculars. We stood up on top of my vehicle and took turns looking at it through the optics for at least 2 to 3 minutes. It was late afternoon and I could see the sun reflecting off the side of the object. It was a few miles from us, but was clearly visible, so it must have been fairly large. It was dirt brown and shaped almost like an elongated electric guitar. So, like a stretched out teardrop shape with a long central spike rising from it, and 2 smaller spikes on either side of the base of the main spike, pointing upward. It hovered completely motionless for long enough that we got a good look at it. Then, like a switch flipping, it began moving sideways and away. It went from dead, stopped, to a decent speed instantaneously with no acceleration or visible means of propulsion. My friend and I looked at each other in fear and astonishment, and when we looked back, it was gone. And one of the biggest regrets of my life is taking my eyes off of it. We told our friends and families, and no one really took us seriously. People listen readily to the story, but still they mostly don't believe me. They just can't wrap their head around it, right? It's like the missing kids. They go, oh wow, that's crazy. Off they go. Now the sea monster. My closest childhood friend told me this as an adult. We've been roommates, own a business together. I've trained a lot of martial arts together, so I trust him implicitly. When he was roughly 11 and his sister was 9 or so, they were in Florida at the beach. That would have been about 1993. They saw a series of gray humps out in the water and thought a pod of dolphins was swimming by, so they stopped to watch. However, he told me a gray horse-like head on a long neck rose out of the water in front of the humps, looked at them, and then submerged. This is a classic description of a sea serpent from ancient mariner accounts. I only ever spoke to him about this once. He doesn't really want to discuss it, and his sister refuses as well. Once you've seen something clear as day that you're told by society and authority does not exist, your entire world is flipped on its head. There's a lot left out there we barely understand, or that has been knowingly suppressed by those who do. Share the story if you want. If it's not material appropriate for your channel, or you think it will open you up to more drama than you want, then don't. Just thought you might find it interesting to hear about other things. Evan. Bingo, Evan. Once you've seen something clear as day that you are told by society and authority that does not exist, your entire world is flipped on its head. When the reality is, they have flipped our world on its head. And we have been raised in a world that's been intentionally flipped on its head, as opposed to the actual truths. Crazy how that works, isn't it? And that description is a popular description, and that description has been cited and reported just off the coast where I grew up, Victoria, British Columbia, on Vancouver Island, and it was called the Cadborosaurus. They nicknamed it back in the 1800s in newspaper reports. Exact identical description. Cadboro Bay is where they cited it from a lot. Cadboro Bay, Vancouver Island. So they nicknamed it Caddy. The Cadborosaurus is what they nicknamed it. Seen since the 1800s. I'm not sure when the latest one sighting was, but it hasn't been too long ago. But as we learn about the comings and goings of particular beings and how they can vanish in portals, well, now we have an answer for the Loch Ness Monster and these sea serpent-like things, maybe, possibly. Right? If it was just in the ocean, well, that's a whole other world. The ocean is an entire parallel universe to us in a way, isn't it? But then you've got the Loch Ness, which is fresh water. Okay, well, how do you explain that one? If they're not just coming up from the depths of another world, which is down there, right? Now they're in a lake. Okay. So now the portal thing comes into play. Maybe. This next one's titled Sasquatch and Blacktail, which is a deer. Hey Steve, I posted the story on the comment section of your WTF story/video. I'm sending it via email as well. It's not an actual sighting, just a tree smashing experience. I don't care if you use this information in your discussions or not. I'm just passing on another story for the record. It appears that you may soon have the most complete documentation of Bigfoot available. Yeah, maybe, right? Never thought of that. I'm a retired U.S. Navy captain / dentist. You know what, though? Some of the places collecting information, they might have way more. Obviously, they withheld a shitload of information from all of you while collecting it from you and manipulated the information they let out. Kicking the balls. I'm a retired U.S. Navy captain / dentist who picked up blacktail hunting 9 years ago after retiring. This event occurred on a quick evening hunt, not too far off a road and within a quarter mile of the home of a recently deceased 80-plus-year-old man in southwest Washington state near Longview. I had a previous discussion with that old man when he stopped at my forest property on his way home, probably 3 years prior to the night of my story. We'd been talking about my recent experience, detailed lower in this paragraph, when he told me in a strange way, quote, "There's very weird stuff in these woods around here," end quote. When pressed further about what he was referring to, he refused to talk about it, but had an almost frightened look on his face. I let it drop, but wondered if he'd had an experience with a Bigfoot or maybe forest pot-growing operations. He kind of creeped me out after seeing his face when he said he wasn't going to talk about it anymore. I was okay with that answer, especially after my recent whacked-out experience that happened on my own property, with what was likely a herd of elk, but which at the time I thought was a massive group of coyotes shouting at me from the forest. The animals were popping off as singles initially, but when I screamed at the top of my lungs when trying to scare them away, they became so loud that I could not hear my own voice screaming over the noise they were making on the ridge above me. I absolutely could not hear my screams coming out of my mouth. I yelled and yelled until I was totally freaked out that the animals were neither scared by my screaming nor were they leaving. They just kept up the roar above me. I ran my ass back down to the road at the bottom of my property, quite shaken when I got back to my rig. I hope to hell it was elk. After that experience, I was okay letting him off the hook about his story that he did want to share. Several years passed, that old guy died, and my life goes on in normal fashion. Anyways, here's a story I left as a comment. I did report it to that loser website when it happened, and that story was much more graphic in detail than since it was fresh in my mind. Probably 4 years have passed since that evening, and I hardly think about it anymore. The detail, unfortunately, has suffered over time. All right, the email really carries on long, by the looks of it, so I have to go to an appointment quick in town, and then I will come back and resume. Okay, we're back. Ooh, that's nice and cold. I've never really cared. It's when I go hunting sometimes and I'm on a day hunt, I'll have a big coffee on the way. I'll drink as much as I can and then I leave it in the truck. And I'll be gone for the whole day when I get back to the truck. If there's some in it, I'll drink it. I don't give a shit. Now, what do you want? Chewing this. Okay. Hold on, I think she wants outside. You want to go outside the shop? You go run around? Here. There you go. There you go. Beat it. Alright. The rest of that email. Anyways, here's the story I left as a comment. I did report it to that website when it happened, and that story was much more graphic in details then, since it was fresh in my mind. Probably 4 years have passed since that evening, and I hardly think about it anymore. The detail, unfortunately, has suffered over time. And it goes on to another entry, and it starts with, awesome! Had a similar experience hunting blacktail deer in western Washington. I am posted up, hidden in the bush, watching a feeding area, waiting for blacktail to get up and come in to eat. Last few minutes of hunting light before the end of the day, and suddenly here's some massive log-sized piece of wood is being banged hard on a nearby tree. It had to be a huge-sized piece of wood. Log size. Like at least 10 inches in my mind to make a noise like that. No bat, no club, nor branch could come close to making the sound I was hearing. It had a weird musical tone to it, too, as it resonated in the air. Hair raised and eyes bugged out. I still wasn't ready to leave my hunting spot, even after the first 2 sets of tree smashes sounded on that tree. But I told myself if it happened a third time, it was time to go. 15 seconds later, I was almost running toward my truck as the third set of tree smashes sounded in the forest. I had to go back down the hill, closer to the area the noises came from, and get back to my truck. The forest was completely empty, eerily quiet as I left, and no vehicles were apparent in that area once I reached my truck. All was quiet, like it never happened. Nowadays, I consider just one of those things that you just accept might happen while you're in the woods. No reason to stay out of the woods, but tread lightly out there. Be respectful of nature. That's it for my Bigfoot encounter. And one easy question for you, if you could spare a moment to respond. A simple yes or no without any further stories is fine, but if you feel so inclined, more information is better. Haven't been a dentist. I'm a still bit of a biologist and scientist, and I occasionally study black-tailed deer journal articles, questionable fun, to learn more about the species. On many occasions when I've been out hunting, I've startled deer, but on 2 rare occasions I've seen them running/sprinting with their bellies nearly touching the ground. They seem to be able to run at speeds of roughly 25 miles per hour or so in fully crouched position, the tops of their backs being no higher than knee level. Scientific literature does not account for this escape modality in any species of deer, so I'm perplexed. I heard some stories about blacktails sneaking away from hunters by crawling on their bellies through the bush, and even that is hard to document. There is absolutely nothing in the literature about them sprinting in a full crouch. With all your time in the blacktail woods, I figured you must be a top candidate as a reputable expert. I'm considering sending in a case report to one or many of these scientific journals just to document the behavior if I ever find corroborating evidence. So my question is, you ever seen a black-tailed deer do an escape run crouched low to the ground, or seen them crawl on their bellies to escape predators? I have one other positive response from a seasoned blacktail hunter who saw a doe exhibit the behavior in response to a black bear suddenly appearing near her. Also in southwest Washington. Perhaps it's a regional trait that doesn't occur elsewhere. Appreciate your time with this question, as well as your efforts on the entire YouTube video library and the How to Hunt Blacktail app. Good stuff. Sincerely, George J. Bingham. Well, George, I don't know, man. Like, I've never been taken back or freaked out from the body movements of any deer when it's running for its life. I think them and us, we can do crazy ass shit when it comes to running for our lives. White-tailed deer have been noted to lay flat on the ground, chin on the ground, in a dip in a field in Alberta where there's nothing but open ground and round bales when they see hunters going by. Have I seen that? No. My friends have seen it? Yeah. And if they tell me that happened, it happened. Black-tailed deer. Obviously, you know they live in jungles. Blackberry thickets out there. Shallal. willow, this nasty-ass Scotch broom that grows on the island, probably in the States too, invasive species. And when they are running through that shit for their lives, they have to be able to run that low to the ground. They have to be able to. If they couldn't, they'd probably be extinct like nothing. Because obviously, if you watch your dog rip through the forest or weeds after a squirrel or whatever, if you get on the National Geographic and watch coyotes, big cats, wolves. Wolves will thread the needle. Wolves thread the needle through up and down, in and around branches and everything. So yeah, man. I've seen black-tailed deer do basically everything they can do. And if they have to, they are absolutely probably dragging their bellies on the ground while doing Mach 5 through that tangle of shit, through rabbit holes. Without a doubt. Well, since I'm on the topic, I'll add in one more detail. So there's another thing that a lot of people don't realize when it comes to deer is where they actually will go. And I never dreamt in a million years they would go until I saw where they went following the tracks in snow. And you know, boulder fields, boulder slides, those real nasty ones on the side of the mountain. Nasty ones that you don't even go across because their boulders are just that size and they're broken. So footholds are very tough. And if you fall, you're probably going to break your leg in those boulders with those dark holes. Well, I'm tracking a huge blacktail buck one day in snow. And that sucker went straight up the middle of that boulder field, tip of the rock to tip of the frickin' rock. Like nothing. I could not believe my eyeballs when previously I thought those boulder fields were obvious physical obstacles. Nope. Not a chance. They go right over top of those suckers like nothing, and they'd probably run on them too. And how they know where to step in that snow and get it through there without breaking their legs is beyond me. Haven't a clue. Crazy witness. And as well, they run up on top of fallen logs. That's a no-brainer. Didn't think they would have way earlier in my outdoor life, but they run on top of logs, fallen logs, to get up and over whatever they get up and over. They're a crazy-ass species of deer. The number one hardest one to harvest out of everything. Easily the hardest. How can I back that up? Well, if you go onto YouTube and type in deer hunting, whitetail deer hunting, mule deer hunting, or blacktail deer hunting, the easiest of the species to harvest is going to be the one with the most videos. Even though, yes, they are hunted in more states and provinces than the coast, but on average, the easier the game animal, the more the videos are going to be available online. Not too many blacktail videos. Here's another one from the late great Scott Carpenter. Listen to this. This was unread by me. Possible Introduction to a Sasquatch is a title email from Scott Carpenter. Rest in peace. Steve, keep giving them hell. We each have a responsibility given the knowledge we have. I always warn those that reach out to me to be very careful around these beings. I discourage anyone, quote, researching, end quote, them. I stopped researching after the results of the DNA study came back and a lot of supernatural stuff started happening around my house. In my mind, we had proven the existence scientifically, and there's nothing left to do. When people ask me how to start researching, I tell them, don't. Find another hobby, fishing, hunting, golfing. You'll enjoy it more and it's safer. I still carry my back trail camera when I go hiking and hunting. You never know when one might poke his head out or cross the trail behind you. I guess you could say I am bait now. I also document any encounters and post videos about these encounters. Plus, I'm in the process. I'm going to sneeze. Damn it, I hate sneezing. Hold on. Plus, I'm in the process of reviewing. Shit. Excuse me. Plus, I am in the process of reviewing 10 years worth of back trail video. Holy. So from time to time, I find one filmed. I see you have the opportunity to get an introduction with the Sasquatch. That decision is a very serious one, and one that should be made with caution. I say that because of my personal experiences with these beings. One of the rules that I ran into was that if you seek them out, you make an effort to knowingly contact them. Then you give them permission to do the same to you. In other words, you're giving them permission to follow you home, come on your property, and have interaction with you on their terms, not yours. I did it out of complete ignorance, but the rules are the rules. You may open yourself up to unintended consequences you could never imagine happening by just seeking one out or communicating with one. Interaction with the Sasquatch will inevitably expose one to other entities and / or cryptids to you. In my case, I exposed family and some friends to these odd occurrences as well. I ended all the craziness by using prayer and forbidding them to come on my property and to interact with me. That kept them away from my house and ended all the other stuff that was happening. But that does not stop them from running around the edges of my property, following me into the woods, yelling and screaming at me from a distance, ruining hunts, etc. It's like a law, and the unintended consequences for me were giving them access to me. That can't be rescinded or stopped. Anytime I go into the outdoors, they are there. Even if I travel to another state or area miles from the group that knows me, it only takes about 24 to 48 hours before the locals show up. I just wanted you to know the possibilities of what could happen, allowing you to make the decision, having all the information possible. It happened to me, and has happened to other researchers I know. Even Dave has had some of these experiences around his home in Colorado. So just be aware, you could open Pandora's box. Thanks for all the good wishes. Be careful out there on your solo hunt. Scott. P.S. I would recommend a personal GPS locator if I was you. One can never be too careful. Yeah, I don't know, man. I've got one. Does my gut tell me to turn it on all the time? My gut doesn't tell me to do that. So I don't really think about it. I don't know why. Do I believe the GPS locator thing to be valid in protecting you from being taken? Me? Just my humble opinion? No. No, I don't believe myself that a GPS locator is going to keep you safe from being abducted. I think at this stage of the game, I do believe that probably 98% of the abductions are from dark human forces. That's just me. And do you think they're going to take a look at you and go, oh shit, he's got a GPS on him. Game over, turn around, said no evil dark bastard ever. Right? I mean, these are basically GPS locators now, sending pings off of the network poles around the globe. They're using these to solve crimes, right? Where did it ping last? Anyway, that's just me. I'm not trying to talk people out of GPS locators. I think they're very useful, especially if you've got somebody who's worried about you all the time, wants to know where you are. I don't know why. Maybe I should change that up, but sometimes I've got one. But I don't know, my levels of the middle of nowhere vary. You know, like if I get dropped off by if I drive 2 days north and then climb in a frickin' bush plane and get dropped off, that'll do it. But when I hunt up north, my pickup truck is somewhere with the ramps for the quad, and then the quad's going to be somewhere. It's not going to be hard to locate me. I don't consider that the middle of nowhere. Maybe that's a little irresponsible, weak. I don't know. Babbling. There you go, you guys. Rich Germeau said the exact same happened to him as Scott. But they were all in the same group together in the early stages too, right? Who knows what they conjured up together back in the day, but Rich Germeau had the same thing, right? He came on here and spoke with us, told us exactly what went down. He went looking for him, had his ass handed to him by that huge pissed off male being that rose up right in front of him, just off the paved road, where he was trying to do his trail cam traps, trying everything he could to try to get evidence. That thing came up, rose up and looked at him and said, "Oh yeah? You might want to stop doing this," basically, right? And he stopped. And then, when he realized that they were at his home and knew what was going on inside his home, and that really upset him to the point of, no more of this shit, right? And then, before I get going, one more quick comment I've got, and I have a very curious question for myself. That man in the southern U.S., totally forget his name. You know why? I don't really remember shit that much when it comes to names and channels and shit. I just remember the experience. That man that was a researcher, and then he went into the woods, and apparently some kind of entity grabbed him and pinned him in his chair or something, and went to absolutely psychologically terrorizing him, broke him in two mentally. And I wonder, do I think that was your classic 9-foot tall, hair-covered being with a conical head, no neck, and huge long arms? I don't know, man. The only reason I think that might not be what did that to that man is because of our patterns we have here from all of you. We have tens of thousands of eyewitnesses describing the same man-like being in the forest in their window, following them home, throwing rocks, stealing chickens, killing rabbits. And we have never, not even once, had somebody come here and report the same thing that happened to that poor soul in South States. Not one of you. Not one of you has ever came here and shared the fact that you were pinned in a chair and mentally absolutely terrorized, told you were prey and that you're being hunted, and nothing you can do about it, and on and on and on. Right? So going by patterns, which our law enforcement friends here have stressed about how they need 3. All they need is 3 for it to be a pattern. And then they dive all over it like a fat kid out of Smartie. We don't even have one. We don't have one person having that experience here. Not one. Right? So, I don't know, maybe you guys can talk about it in the comment section. Throw down in the comment section that poor man that was mentally broken, previous Bigfoot researcher. Do you think that the being or beings that pinned him in his lawn chair in the woods and psychologically broke him, do you think that was your typical Sasquatch Sabe being? Yes or no? My guts tell me no, it wasn't. My guts tell me something else. Don't know. These suckers. Oh. Oops. Well, it just came unscrewed. I can actually fix that pair. Crazy. What do we got here? There we go. Brand newbies right there. Go through suckers like socks. All right, here we go. This is titled Hoping Maybe Somebody Else Has Encounters in This Area. September 1st, 2017. I'm an avid elk hunter from north central Alberta. I only archery hunt elk because I find it challenging and the adrenaline rush is like no other. Agreed. Big elk up there where you are, and huge bucks. I was privileged enough to have an experience. This being one of a handful, but the only one that provided a sighting of any sort, was something I cannot explain to my logical brain. This area is near the Long Lake Provincial Park in a grazing lease bordering the park boundaries. Closed from May 1st to November 1st with locked gates at all accesses. I wonder why. I had permission from the Grazing Association at the time to do my thing on foot access only. I'd taken my small family up to the end of an access road / mud hole a mile into the timber that allows you to drop into a large valley or into the plateau of 200 sections of community pasture. I'd taken my 4x4 truck with my quad, looked into the end of the access so that they could enjoy a nice campfire and the creature comforts while I hiked the pasture that is rimming the valley edge and locate call. I've had wolves come to elk calls before, and had bears decide to come investigate, so this is not my first experience having things go sideways. After walking about 1.5, maybe 2 miles from the truck, I found a nice drainage leading into the valley with a great elk trail where I let out an echoing locate bugle. It resonated off the valley walls perfectly. I had a crude response. To my southeast, in the valley, barely noticeable, I figured it must be at least 2 miles away across the valley. I hiked slower than slow when locating elk, and about 50 more yards, 5 minutes, up the edge, I heard what sounded like a bugle from a long shot bull. Same sound. It was deep, like a very mature bull or something. What else could mimic that sound? Not convincing, but sparked curiosity, as I've heard very different varieties of elk sounds before, and many horrible elk callers, but I wanted to see who covered those 2 miles across a swamp and nearly vertical valley wall in 5 minutes. This crude bugle came across as a bugle, but not exactly toned correctly. It had the tone, but not the octave changes correct. It still had my attention. Sat down and waited. And after about 10 minutes, I heard a log snap about 100 yards into the thick stuff, which I interpret as an opportunity to get into position. I chirped out a couple cow calls and began moving in the sound's direction into the wind, about 50 yards to where I think it will extricate the thick bush line. Arrow knocked, eyes wide. I sat with my ears pinned, not hearing a sound for roughly 5 minutes. Then the bomb dropped. I caught movement and began to realize that I'm seeing a human-shaped head, more egg-shaped than mine, black, peeking out from behind a large poplar tree, just the top half of the head. As soon as my brain made sense of what the F I was seeing, it disappeared in a flash. Trees and logs snapping as it retreated back into the valley. I did the same, but back to the truck. When I got back to the truck, my wife asked if I had shot that bull as she heard it calling and heard it crash off. I told her I missed, packed her shit up and left. I still hunt that area, but I avoid the valley, and I show respect when I'm on that land. I've heard things running at night. I've been rushed at a campfire by heavy footsteps, and the elk are consistently dwindling in that area. That sucks. There's something out there, and it has me very curious. I find it funny how the provincial parks are all somehow a hotbed for activity. Yeah, but are they? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. You got provincial parks with a lot more human traffic than the places we go hunting. So, here's the question when it comes to people possibly being convinced or focusing on the fact that national parks, provincial parks are hotbeds. I don't know. I'm not convinced. Because if you took the human traffic that parks get, and if you put that traffic in the wilds where we hunt, are you going to come up with the same amount of activity and sightings? Right? Probably. Do I think national parks are put aside for a safe haven for these beings by past governments? Nope. Can't convince me of that. No, you can't. Just for the fact of what I just asked, that was stated. Or a question that popped up, sorry. You take some people have done that map thing. They overlay a map of North America, they overlay where the most population of people are, and then they overlay the Sasquatch sightings on top of that. Oh my God, is it ever so similar? But where's the surprise there? It doesn't even make sense for me to even go out of your way to note that. Obviously, where you get the most human traffic in the woods obviously where the most human population is, that's where you're going to get the most of your sightings. It's a no-brainer. Right? And of course they're going to taper off the farther out you get in the middle of nowhere, because there's not that many idiots like me and this guy and others that are willing to go out to those places. So that's going to cut your sightings down dramatically. It shouldn't even be a question. Right? You know what I mean? People throwing down that map. And it's strikingly similar to our populated areas. You professional investigators are probably laughing right now, right? Anyway, there you go. Another elk hunter, another club member, and the elk sounds. So funny. It's funny for me. I get amusement out of watching people heckle and try to judge other human beings elk calling. I mean, I'm guilty. I've called in. Believe me, I've called in more than a few people elk hunting, and I've done it intentionally to a few, but the amount of different weird sounds I've heard come out of elk is ridiculous. Just like any seasoned outdoors person has heard them. They go from wheezing, sounds like they're getting strangled, to they're out of breath, to they can't even make sound anymore, to the classic perfectly delivered elk call. But that being said, how do you tell the difference between something mimicking the elk and intentionally trying to sound like an elk to you? That's where your gut comes in. Right? And be honest, I've never been duped by a human being mimicking an elk. Never. I've heard a sound, caught my attention, listened. Is that one? And I'll wait the appropriate amount of time, and then I'll call back and listen for that reply. And I'll usually have it nailed down as a human being by their second attempt, third tops. Then it's just something that you know is a human. You know it is. Funny, right? Even an elk that bugles out what your average human would consider possibly a shitty call, you still know it's an elk. No matter how goofy they sound, you still know it's an elk and not a human being. And then you hear a human being doing a shitty elk call, and your gut, you know it's a human being. So I'm saying about this, one of these beings mimicking, you know something's not right. And then from there, you do whatever you decide to do. Right? Go forward, continue on, or, all right, I'm out of here. And then as far as the elk population's dwindling because of these beings, I had somebody else, I forget where I read it or heard it. But somebody else, is an easily studied area of elk, only a draw area for X amount of elk tags, no wolves, and some local elk fanatics had noted that only the younger bulls were consistently disappearing, which would lend to possibly prove or show us that whoever else is preying on those elk are managing the herd for their benefit, like we do. So, but is there something else feeding on those elk? Probably. Is there some of those beings that just don't give a flying shit and they're going to clean them up and eat them all and hang out as long as they can? Probably. Because I noted the black bear population absolutely drastically falling right off up past Whistler in the Pemberton Valley. It's like did not make sense at all to me. Didn't make sense. Harsher winter can't do it because they're sleeping. It wasn't the wolves because I was following the wolves everywhere. And there's zero black bear fur in their shit, and there's no, they have been noted to pull them out of their holes and eat them. But they don't make it a daily routine. They don't do it until they're annihilated, the whole species in that area. I never seen where wolves pulled a black bear out of its den once. Not once. And believe me, I've followed wolves full time for a long time. I haven't found the remains. I have not found the skulls and leftover bits and pieces from a black bear kill. I mean, I've found a few black bear kills over the years, but we're talking 2 or 3. And believe me, I'm out there enough. And those bears were so thick, the number's so high. If something's killing them and eating them conventionally on the ground, I'm going to find their carcasses. Didn't find nothing. But we're talking hundreds of black bears disappearing. Huh? And of course the government don't give a shit. The government doesn't care. They wouldn't even know what's going down. They don't count bears. They don't give a flying shit. Remember? All they care about is control of the labor to appease the entity. Right? Don't forget that statement. Man, oh man, does that ever fit tight like a glove? Anyway. Do they like to eat black bears? They've been noted as having a black bear under their arm lots of times. Mountain goats, anything protein. Anything. Dead sheep that we left them. They took it. Moose, elk, especially deer, everything. Everything. Rotten, stinky, pudding-like salmon carcasses. They eat it. Some people have noted they ate human feces out of the frickin' outhouse. That sounds like demon food right there, doesn't it? How much they won't eat. How about that other man who reported the other day, all the fish littered around, and they were all bitten where the guts were and the carcasses thrown on the ground. Right? Oh, look at these fine fillets and head. I'm just going to chomp where the guts are because I like fish shit. Right? Not picky, as long as it's got protein. Anyway, enough babbling for today. Here I go with my day, onward and upward. I'll be back tomorrow. Oops. Did I mention those missing children again today? I think I did. You talking about it still, or are you still looking away?